Hello everyone, Silent Gamer here. Ever since the release of Sombra in November of last year, she's really been an underplayed hero compared to the rest of the Overwatch cast. Currently, Sombra is pretty much the least picked hero in competitive on the public Overwatch client, but in the Apex Korean tournament recently, she's been picked in basically every single 2CP map that has been played, in addition to some other appearances on maps like Hollywood, Eichenwald, and Oasis. In this video, I want to break down why you should be picking up Sombra as an additional hero that you flex onto on her powerful maps. Sombra is very strong on maps that have accessible health packs that she can hack, and because of that, even if you're not a Sombra player, or even if you don't play Sombra a lot, you can still be very effective with her if you understand her role. So in this video, I want to break down why Sombra is going to be better than some of the other choices you could have in your team composition. So in this game between Kangdu Panthera and Lunatic High, Kangdu Panthera is going to be running Sombra on defense, and they're going to be running Sombra as a DPS. They have the 2 tanks, they have the 2 supports, they have the Tracer, and so Sombra is replacing a DPS here. There are 2 other DPS heroes that they could be running here. First one is Soldier 76. Soldier 76 on this map can be pretty good because he can just stand on the back high ground next to the Ana. He can get Tactical Visor, and obviously Nano Visor is going to be very strong. The other option that they could have is to run Genji. Genji is going to be pretty synergistic with the rest of their team composition because it just kind of goes all in on the dive. You have the Tracer and the Genji, and then you have the Winston and Diva, so it's a pretty straightforward dive composition. However, Sombra has some pretty big advantages over both of these other heroes, and that's what I want to break down in this match. The big advantage that Sombra has over both of them is going to be ult charge and how good her ultimate is. We're going to watch here, Sombra's going to do just some light harassment as everyone else is going in. Genji can also do this, just build up some early ult charge, but Soldier 76 at this point probably hasn't had any impact. So that's, I guess, an advantage that Sombra has, is that she can be active and getting this ultimate charge as the enemy team pushes in. So one of the disadvantages that you have when you're running Sombra is that pre-ult, you're not going to have as much killing power as you would have otherwise. You're going to see here, the Sombra comes in and gets a nice flank off onto the Zenyatta, and the Sombra doesn't actually end up taking much damage from anyone. Now, if you're a Genji here, you would have a lot of damage to be able to just go in, assassinate the Zenyatta, and then have dash to maybe dash out, deflect. You'd be able to get out of this even after going in pretty deep for an assassination. That's the biggest disadvantage that Sombra is going to have. You don't have the same just straight up killing potential pre-ultimates. When none of the enemy team has ultimates, when none of you have ultimates, you're really not going to be as strong as a Genji would be in this situation. So that's the sacrifice that you're making by playing Sombra. You're going to see Rascal has to translocate out without really doing much. However, other than that, he's still getting about the same value as a Genji would be getting, as a soldier would be getting. He's just kind of sitting back, doing some damage, not really committing very far. Here, the Widowmaker steps out too far. He's able to get the kill on her, and that's debatable whether or not you have an advantage doing that as a Sombra. A Genji would definitely also be able to fill that role, but if you're running a Soldier 76 at that point, you're probably not able to flank that Widowmaker as effectively. However, the big advantage comes in that the Sombra here has ultimate basically done. She's going to get it here very quickly. You see this EMP comes in very fast. It's 50 seconds into the match. And that's because of being able to hack those health packs and Sombra just healing her teammates from having those hacked health packs. That ultimate is going to be much faster than Who Are You, who's playing Genji on the enemy team. He's only at 50%. And honestly, is even beating out the Ana here, who's only at 75% ult charge. So when you're playing Sombra, you're going to have that ultimate very reliably and consistently. And that's really when Sombra starts to shine, is when you can be using her ultimate. Her ultimate is going to be very strong, and you basically get it in every single team fight if it lasts a reasonable amount of time. This was the first team fight, and Rascal already has his EMP. He's not going to actually use it here because Kangdu Panthera has basically already won, and it's just cleaning up, staggering the enemy team. But he's going to be able to have that EMP in his pocket for the next fight. So at this point, you could argue, well, but what about Genji? Genji also gets his Dragon Blade very quickly. Now that they didn't use it, you could basically have a Dragon Blade. There's also a technical pause here that we can quickly skip through. But you could charge a Dragon Blade just about as quickly as that Sombra. If you were doing very well as Genji, you would have the Dragon Blade pretty fast, and you can even see who are you on the enemy team has his Dragon Blade as well. But we're going to see here as the enemy team pushes in, the EMP goes off, basically instantly wins the team fight, right? Not a whole lot that the supports can do when they're EMP'd. But, I mean, Dragon Blade, or maybe even a Tactical Visor if a soldier had gotten it very quickly, would have been just about as good in that same situation, right? Dragon Blade can reasonably get kills on the Zenyatta and Lucio himself. The big problem with that starts happening right about now in the game. If you get that first Dragon Blade way faster than the enemy team, you can do a lot of work with it. But if you don't, and you maybe have the enemy team get a Sound Barrier or a Transcendence, I mean, a Nano Visor even, or a Nano Blade, isn't going to be able to do a whole lot when these big support ultimates start coming out. That's going to be the big difference here, is that once the enemy team has ultimates, EMP gets even better, whereas Dragon Blade and Tactical Visor get worse. Kangdu Panthera really shows us off well here. The Lucio, they know has Sound Barrier, and so as he comes in, Sombra's just going to boop, hack the Lucio. Lucio dies before getting a Sound Barrier off, and easy peasy, they clean up this fight as well. So that's the trade-off you're making when you're choosing Sombra. You're going to be having less damage than perhaps a Genji or Soldier 76 would, but you don't necessarily need that damage. What you're trading it for is a ton of ability to shut down the enemy team once these ultimates start coming out. And that's going to be a big decider on 2CP maps, especially when it can be very difficult to take these team fights without using a bunch of ults. We're going to see here, Lunatic High is pushing in, and they're going to end up winning this team fight, mostly just because they have all of these ultimates. They're going to use a Tactical Visor, they're going to use a Transcendence, you can see they're after this going to drop the Sound Barrier as well, and there's not really a whole lot that Kangdu Panthera can do to win this team fight when they're just out-ultimated. And that's going to be something that's pretty similar between the Genji and the Soldier 76 and the Sombra, right? If you're playing Sombra, you can't really do a whole lot if they're all dropping these ults if you don't get the hack off before. But, I mean, that's kind of the same boat, right? You're not at a disadvantage because a Soldier 76 or Genji wouldn't be able to do that either. So, on the second point, the way that Sombra plays changes up quite considerably. If you're playing a Soldier 76 here, you're playing with your Ana, you're trying not to die because you're going to be in the same position up on the high ground battlements, right? You can see the Ana from Kangdu Panthera's over there. You're going to just try and survive the dive composition, right? And if you're Genji, you'll maybe be playing up here too, like spamming some shurikens out, double jumping around, having deflect. But you're not going to be able to really commit too heavily into the enemy team because you're on defense. The big difference here is that once the enemy gets onto the point, if you're Soldier 76 or Genji, you can't really do a whole lot. We're going to see here, the enemy is going to get a couple kills very quickly. The Tracer and the Lucio go down. That was a nice pulse bomb that Eska hits to actually get this kill on the Lucio. But once that situation happens, the tanks are actually going to go down quite quickly from Kangdu Panthera. And that's a situation where Genji or Soldier 76 would have to suicide onto this point and instantly pretty much die because they have to contest it and keep people on the point in order to have a chance of turning this around. That's going to be a big advantage for Sombra here. Sombra ends up using her EMP in this fight. It doesn't end up being a big deal because they've already lost the Tracer and they don't really have the tank follow-up to kill anyone from this EMP. But she's actually also going to get a hack onto the Tracer here in just a second. You can see Tracers being really difficult to pin down, blinking away, but oh, a hack comes through, instantly leading to the death of the Tracer. Meanwhile here, you can see the dive composition came in, Hura used Dragon Blading. If you're playing Soldier 76 and you're on these high ground battlements here, you're basically dead. There's not really a whole lot that you can do to escape from a Dragon Blade. However, when Rascal is running Sombra here, you can see he cloaks and completely disappears. No one is able to find where he is. And in these 2CP stalling situations, Sombra is going to be very strong because she can successfully stand on that point without just suiciding. Like, if you're a Genji, if you're a Soldier 76, jumping into the Winston and Diva, you're going to die. And because Rascal doesn't die, he's able to keep building ult charge, he's able to keep having an impact in this fight, and ends up holding back Lunatic High's attack with only one tick lost. which is something that would be very challenging to do if you were running a Genji or Soldier 76 in the same situation. Alright, so this is going to be showing Sombra on another map. This is Oasis, specifically Oasis University Point. And on this map, there is a very nice health pack directly under the point that is going to be able to provide a lot of healing for your team if it gets hacked. So we're going to see right off the bat, Pine is going to be playing the Sombra for LW Blue. He gets speed boosted by his Lucio to this health pack and gets the hack. Now that's actually very nice for LW Blue because if we look right here, there is barely visible. This is the line of the other Sombra trying to hack this because actually both teams are trying to run this Sombra. But of note is that they are running it differently than the last game. Now they're trying to run this Sombra as a second support because they have the 2 DPS, they have the 2 tanks, and they only have the solo Lucio healing, and that is actually for both teams. There's no support other than the Lucio. So in this case, we're not asking, would this Sombra be better than a Genji or a Soldier 76? Instead, we're asking, is this Sombra better than a Zenyatta or perhaps an Ana? And that's a question that turns out to be a very clear yes, because of the amount of healing that Sombra is able to do. So we're going to see right here, actually, this Winston drops into the pit, ends up getting a pretty decent amount of healing. You can see he's missing, hard to say, maybe about 150 health, and Pine's ultimate charge here is going to jump to 25% once he gets that health pack instantly, putting him ahead of every other character in the game. And that's the healing power of Sombra. If you average out the healing, Sombra does just about as much healing as a Mercy, but the big difference is that the drop can happen and it can just instantly be health for the enemy team. So because LW Blue got the hack on this health pack, Kongju Panther actually walks back to spawn and switches Rascal onto this Zenyatta here as the alternative to running the Sombra. So the question we need to ask here is Pine on Sombra doing better than Rascal is doing on Zenyatta, or if he just switched to Zenyatta himself, which is going to be having a bigger impact in this game. And right off the bat, we're going to see the weakness of Zenyatta is when he gets dove, and that's exactly what Kongju Panther does here. The Winston jumps in, the Diva jumps in. We're going to see the Tracer being played by Birdring right here is going to go in too. And if you have a Zenyatta here in the back line, it can be very difficult to keep the Zenyatta alive. You probably need to have the Zenyatta positioned somewhere around this back area behind this wall, because if he's any further back, he can't actually contribute anything to the fight. But right here, there isn't a Zenyatta to dive. It may be true that Pine here he's not healing anyone on his team actively right now. There isn't a Discord orb on this Winston, but he's also not dead, and not being dead is a very powerful thing in Overwatch. So we're going to see this dive doesn't really clearly have any targets. I mean, they're essentially diving the Diva and the Winston, and I guess the Lucio there. And this is where we really start to see the big impact of Sombra. Right here, we're going to see Sombra is going to get a hack on this Tracer, and this Tracer is going to be easy pickings and instantly go down. And Winston here is actually going to drop into this hole for the big health pack, getting the instant 250 health and being able to actually jump in immediately afterwards. That's the impact that Sombra has. It's going to be very big in a way that Zenyatta would not be able to do. So the question we need to ask is, would you rather have that Sombra or would you rather have that Zenyatta? And especially if you're going to be playing a healer on these maps, it's going to be very difficult to actually live in the first place, to have those Harmony orbs and those Discord orbs going out. But even if you manage to have the Discord orb and the Harmony orb still alive, if you don't die to the dive, let's assume that, which is not really a safe assumption to make in the first place, the hack is going to be a very powerful tool for an offensive Sombra that's almost better than having the Discord orb. In the last fight, that Tracer got hacked, and that basically instantly killed the Tracer because she couldn't use any of her abilities. Whereas, I mean, if you Discord a Tracer, you still have to do a bunch of damage to her. She can recall, which removes your Discord orb, so it's really not going to be a big deal. Also, you can't instantly heal 250 health on your Winston, and we're going to see that the healing from Sombra is basically giving the ability of all of LW Blue to just drop into the middle of the point and have an instant refill of health in a way that you would not have with a Zenyatta. So what am I trying to say here? If you're playing a support or a DPS on a map that has lots of available health packs, you should consider switching to Sombra because she is very strong on some maps. You want to be playing her when there are good health packs and when you have a good team composition to synergize with her. You can see she's being run with a Winston and D.Va because those people can easily grab her health packs. She also is run against a Winston, D.Va, and a Tracer. All of those are good hack targets. And she has this big point that the enemies have to stand on that gives her good EMP targets. Obviously, in a pro match, all of these things are going to be true, and that makes Sombra very strong. But it doesn't need to be all of those factors coming into play just for you to be able to play Sombra. If you have a Winston and D.Va and there's a good health pack, you can play Sombra into most enemy team compositions because you're going to have that EMP so often. And so if you're having trouble playing a support and you keep getting dove, or if you're having trouble confirming kills onto Tracers, or you're not being able to do any damage to D.Vas, you should consider playing Sombra because you can have a huge impact once enemy ultimates start coming out, and in a way that any other DPS would be unable to actually affect the battle. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. Until next time, good luck and have fun out there.